My name's Adam Ward. I'm Director of Studies of the International Institute for Strategic Studies, and I'm joined today by Professor Toby Dodge, Consulting Senior Fellow for the Middle East, whose recent publications include an Adelphi book with the title Iraq from War to a New Authoritarianism, which garnered a number of rave reviews, including from The Economist newspaper, which in 2013 announced that it was one of its books of the year. Toby, after a rather brutal tide of violence and chaos sweeping from an outpost in Syria down towards almost the gates of Baghdad, IISS has now established a Caliphate and it's nominated a Caliph. Is this really the end of Iraq as we've known it?
That's a fascinating question. I would answer, I suppose, with a few statistics to begin with, that IISS, even the most optimistic or the largest numbers would say it only has 8,000 fighters on the ground, and I think that number is much closer to 3,000. So what we've seen is a remarkably quick sweep from Mosul down towards Baghdad, and that expansion has run out of road. It was halted at the gates of Samarra, and now it's being pushed back. So I suspect the declaration of the Caliphate is a masterful public relations stunt, and it's kept them in the news. But I think it's more indicative of a group that's run out of steam, because in calling for the Caliphate, in demanding that Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is recognized as the leader, they're demanding that the other groups involved in this rebellion, at least another 4 substantive military groups, lay down their weapons. And I think this is when we start to get internal fighting, and when the extent of the Islamic State's capacity will be highlighted as being much less than we thought. So that's a long-winded way of saying Iraq isn't dead, but I think the territory above Baghdad and below the Kurdish regional government's line of control will be probably ungoverned space, or space that is fought over by numerous different groups.
Now, does the organisation see the establishment of Caliphate as an end in itself, or simply a means to much greater ends that have already been specified?
I think for them, a global caliphate is the ultimate goal. So this is the nascent, the base from which they will expand. I think they have been remarkably successful. There's no doubt about that. I think the level, these are like jihadis with MBAs, the level of their professionalism, even in their Twitter feed before they were closed down, they had embedded advertising. So even in moving towards interacting with them, you were reaping the money. Their annual reports and the flash drives that were seized shows a powerfully centralized, well-organized, highly professional organization. But I do think the declaration of a caliphate is indicative of overreach. And let's not forget, they were here before. They declared the Islamic State was originally created as an umbrella organization in 2006. By the time they started again to push towards an emirate, they'd alienated a much wider swathe of Sunni jihadi and Sunni revolutionary opinion, and out of that came the awakening movement and their breaking of their first power in Iraq. So they have it within themselves to be hubristic and exclusive, and that's exactly what they've done now.
So their requirement at the same time that everybody else shows them deference is likely to fall on deaf ears, or are there groups out there that might decide that this is a referent object for them, something to strive towards and to support?
I think it's intriguing. I think there's an internal-external tension. I think externally they have proved masterful with social media, with propaganda, and they have become the face not only of the Syrian jihad but the Iraqi jihad. Internally, both on the ground in Syria and especially on the ground in Iraq, their demand for loyalty, but also with compliance to an incredibly austere reading of Islam, has already alienated people. I think Iraqis more generally, and even radical Iraqis fighting against the regime in Baghdad, have a much more plural view of Islam and have been alienated by the very narrow demands of the Islamic State.
Now, your Adelphi book for us was in many senses a very forensic critique of the particular governance and political style adopted by Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki. To what extent do you think this whole crisis can be laid at his door in terms of blame?
Yeah, I'd answer that on 2 levels. I think undoubtedly Nouri al-Maliki is centrally to blame. His policy mistakes triggered this revolt. So Rafi al-Asawi, the popular Minister of Finance and a native of Fallujah, was driven out of the cabinet in March 2013, triggering the revolts that were the popular demonstrations that were the forerunner of this revolt. They were then violently suppressed across 2013 and into 2014 by the Iraqi security forces, kind of setting the ground for what the revolt we have today. But I think more than that, because it may well be in the days to come that Malik is removed, and I think to say, right, that's the problem over, will be to misunderstand the fundamental structural drivers of this. The political system set up in 2003, re-institutionalized in the elections of the two elections, 2005 and 2010, structurally excludes the Sunni section of the population, deliberately reduces their role within the state, and almost heralds them as a defeated and vanquished population. And it's out of that structural determination that this revolt has come.
Final question then, how vulnerable do you assess Malik's position to be? Who might succeed in, and what might be different about them?
Well, as you can imagine, Baghdad is awash with rumours, some of which seem fairly reliable. The argument is that the Shia House, the National Alliance of the the three biggest Shia parties, have turned against Maliki. There are sustained rumours that the most legitimate religious figure in the country, Grand Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani, has sent a letter from his place in Najaf to Baghdad saying, basically, I paraphrase, it's time to go. And there's quite a strong sense that the Iranians themselves, Malik's main backer since 2010, have seen the writing on the wall and realise if they want to retain their huge influence, they need to swap Maliki for someone equally aligned to them, probably this chap, Tariq al-Najm, who was Maliki's key advisor, his bagman to go to Tehran, but someone who's considered to be strategically and politically much more astute.
We'll watch this space. Toby, thanks very much. No doubt we'll speak again soon.
My pleasure. Thank you.